The one thing I wanted to talk about today that's unique is the overspin versus the underspin. And I've got two baits here. One is your classic underspin that everybody's talking about that's used with Kitech style baits, swim baits. This one right here is from Scottsboro Tackle. It is a high quality underspin bait. So underspin, spinners on the bottom. The other thing I wanted to talk about today, then we'll talk about when to use this, but then I also wanted to talk about this animal. And this one here is the first gen Topspin. First gen is the name of the company here. And it's like almost exactly like that underspin, except the wire is coming out of the top of the bait, and it's a topspin. So when do you use the underspin and when do you use the topspin? So let's break it down by how they're intended to be seen. And the way I look at it is I will use the underspin when the bait are up in the water column and feeding on the surface. And so you want the blade, right? You're going to reel this and you want the blade down. And the reason there's a blade on this minnow style swim bait is because you're trying to get some extra attention drawn to the swim bait. You're wanting to give it the effect that there's maybe more than the one here, maybe a small school that have separated from the pack that the fish can eat. And if they're fishing and hunting up at a school of bait that's up, then I usually reach for the underspin and I reel it near the surface so that flash is near, under the bait, and the fish are targeting and seeing that flash up. They're thinking it's more than one minnow and they're going to come after that small school. And with this kind, I'll typically use either a Rage swimmer. This is I think it's a 3.25 inch Rage swimmer, or I'll use the Kitech Swing Impact, the Fats. I'll use a little bit thicker style, the Fats in the Rage swimmer. And I'll use those bigger profiles when I want a little more buoyancy because I want this thing up towards the surface. This is a minnow being pressed up against the top, one of the dimensions that the fish are trying to push the bait up because they can't get away, right? They can get him on the surface. So underspin, bait up. Now this animal is fairly new. I think it came out in 2022. I think you saw this at ICAST with this first gen topspin. But this has got the same blade and it's got it on the top of the bait. So this bait, I think, is primarily used, and I primarily use it when I see bait on the bottom. And I want to be casting out and I want to be having this bait belly on the bottom and going slowly across the bottom. So I'll slow roll this bait with a swim bait style bait, or I more commonly use something like a grub, like this Kalin's 5-inch Kalin's grub. And the reason I'm using the grub mounted arc down, you'll see my hook style is up, and I'll mount it on the bait so that it's opposite of the tail, so that way the tail doesn't hang up on the hook. But I'm using that because I'm slow rolling that, and I can get action out of this tail barely moving this bait. And this blade will spin with pretty slow action, and the tail of the grub will move with very slow action, and you're trying to run this thing across the bottom. Many people will try to slow roll this across the bottom, and this doesn't really work because that blade gets buried in the bottom. We'll show you a little video here of it not working properly. You'll see that the blade gets lost in the bottom. It's not really being super effective. Not as effective as what this blade is meant to be for it, as it would be with this topspin. So topspin is for the bottom, and grub style bait on here when you're slow rolling. Topspin on the bottom is going to get you movement, and this is particularly good, I think, in the winter and going to be in the early spring when the fish are still deep and they're still a little lethargic and you need to move something slow but still imitate bait. So this could very easily be dying bait. And you'll notice in the fall time too, when bait transitions in that period when you can catch fish deep and you can catch fish shallow related to bait, you'll see bait balls super deep, 30 feet deep on humps, and then you'll see bait up in 2 feet of water on flats. And I'll use the same thing in the fall if I see them up shallow, busting fish on the surface. I'm using the top spin so that they can see that blade from the bottom. And then likewise, I see them out in 35 feet. I'm going to whip this past the hump, drop it down to the hump, and then slowly slow roll this over the top of the hump to catch those deep fish, and that'll work in the fall. That'll work then in the winter when those fish are deep, and then it'll work as they're transitioning back out of that deep water. They'll hit this thing, this topspin too. So two things out there, you know, the overspin and the underspin, and knowing when to use them and what to put on them to get the best action, to get the best silhouettes, to get the blade to actually help you attract fish from the bottom up or from the top down, depending on where those bait are. So try these out. Check out, I'll put the links to the description of those three styles actually that I've shown you. The other style, like I said, I'm using over shallow weeds. Again, when the fish are feeding up, coming out of the weeds, I want something weedless. Then I'll use that reaction tackle style. But those are the three styles of underspins and top spins that I like to use to get that bait fish, that extra attraction of the blade, and catch you more fish. So try them out. Let me know how you use them. Hope this tip was helpful. Please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time on the water.